My next guest is a UFC veteran who's going to be returning to the CES cage coming up here on January 19th. He's going to be taking on Stephen Regman. It is Eric Spicely back here on the program. Eric, how are you?
I'm good, man. How are you doing?
I'm doing awesome, man. It's good to catch up with you again, and I appreciate you doing this during the holiday season, but a lot of news going on with you right now. I mentioned the CES fight off the top, but first, I want to start with this tryout you had for the WWE. How did this all come together with you going and trying out for the WWE?
Basically, I think I filled out an application. I used to wrestle before I got signed to the UFC, and my coach had told me, you know, wrestling will always be there. So, and when I got signed, Joe Silva politely suggested that I did not continue to wrestle, as he does. So yeah, I don't know. Once my contract was up, I went back and started wrestling some more. So it's always something that I've loved and like wanted to do. So I don't know, it's a lot of fun.
You mentioned the pro wrestling experience before, and that's something we had talked about in the past. And I know your good buddy Chuck O'Neill is someone as well who's in the pro wrestling world a little bit, just on the regional scene. Was there anyone you reached out to for advice ahead of the tryouts? You know, just because obviously this is the best promotion to compete for in terms of pro wrestling.
The guy that actually trained me, he's at NXT now. I think he's been there for maybe a year or so, year and a half, 2 years. And he had actually shown me all the drills and like all the stuff. So like I already kind of knew what I was getting myself into. So it wasn't anything new. It was like I just kind of needed to be in shape, which like I already am from training. And it was like, I don't know, it wasn't that bad. It was hard for sure, but like it wasn't as bad as like people make it out to be.
Okay. How did the preparation differ from, say, preparing for a fight?
I didn't do anything different, but
okay.
Like the drills they had us do were things I don't normally do. Like we did, I don't know, maybe 1,000 free squats, like stuff like that, where like, you know, my legs were really sore afterwards, but it wasn't anything like too crazy.
And who taught you pro wrestling in the first place?
Mostly this guy, Oni Lorkin, who's down at NXT right now. And then I worked with this other guy, Ryan Drew, who's a really, really good pro wrestler in Fall River. I had an alarm set for our interview and it just went off. So yeah, mostly just these two guys who really helped me and influenced me. And then I just like messed around with Chuck whenever I could and try to wrestle as much as possible.
That's great. And as far as the actual tryouts themselves, like how long were they? What did it entail? If you can kind of give us like a Cole's Notes version, what is it like for someone getting to try out for the WWE?
It was kind of, I don't know, it was kind of surreal, but it kind of also didn't really, and I hate to say it like that, like it didn't affect me, but like, I don't know, it felt like I was doing the tough tryouts all over again. You know, like I knew how big it was, I knew how important it is. But like I'm here, I'm ready to just like work and earn my spot. And it was long. It was like almost a week, and it was just a lot of like conditioning and cardio, twice a day, almost all day. We had like a break for lunch, and like that was it. And yeah, they really, really put you through the ringer.
Okay, how long were the days? Were they like 12 hours?
No, it was maybe like 9 to 7 or so, 9 to 6. But you started right at 9 a.m. Like as soon as it hit 9 a.m., you started doing air squats. And it was like pretty nonstop. Like there's not like, okay, we'll do a drill and then we'll break and then we'll hang out and like show you the next one and talk. Like it was like, okay, we're doing this drill. Everyone does the drill and then like, they have 5 rings set up, so you have to do the drill in all 5 rings, and you just like keep going in a circle, and then they show the next drill, and then you just keep going. And it's pretty brutal. They had this woman there, Lacey Evans, who's a former Marine Corps, and she was just like, she's harsh. She's just like yelling at people. If anyone like would take a rest or like prop themselves up on the ring, she'd get screamed at, just like, I don't know, it was a lot of fun. It was a little crazy. I mean, they want to see what kind of character you have. They want to see how you're going to act when you're tired. They want to see, like how you're going to control your body when you're tired. So
Interesting. What would you say the most challenging part of the tryouts was?
Um, I don't know. It wasn't like anything I haven't ever seen. So it wasn't, like some guys, like there was a lot of bodybuilders there
Right. I'm
that,
sure the cardio part they were probably screwed, right? Because they don't do a lot of that.
yeah. And well, it's like they just, I don't think they understood, they were like, yeah, yeah, I've been on the Stairmaster getting ready for this. And I'm like, it's going to be a lot harder than that. Um, and they're just big dudes. Like there was some guy, and I was in the pro athlete tryout, so it was a lot of, there was an Olympian there. There was football players, bodybuilders, not necessarily all wrestlers. So I don't know. I feel like that helped me stand out a little bit more too. Um, but yeah, some guys were just dying. I don't think they had done that kind of cardio before.
Anyone notable there at the tryouts that people would know, or is it just like you said, just Olympians, just kind of random NFL or pro people?
I don't think it would be anyone like
So you were probably the most popular guy there because you were on the Ultimate Fighter. I mean, I'm sure people would remember you from that and the UFC.
Yeah,
Obviously.
I mean they took a picture and they put it on like the main website, and they kept like featuring me in a lot of stuff, interviewing me and stuff like that. So like I think yeah. I mean it's like easy when everyone's like, oh, because like no one really knew who I was. So they were like, why do they keep talking to you? And I was like, oh, like I used to fight on TV like 6 months ago, and they're like, mind blown. But yeah, everyone was really cool. It was really awesome. There was this guy, Bo Beverly, who's like an old pro wrestler. His son was there. Just yeah, nobody of like crazy note. But there was a lot of like sick athletes there. Like some really, I was probably like one of the smallest guys. They were like all 6'5", like 275 pounds, like all just huge.
Okay. Where were the tryouts? Just for those who might not know.
They were in Orlando, Florida, at
Oh,
the
right. Okay.
Performance Center. They have their own performance center, kind of like the UFC PI, and they have everything you need there. So you just train, and there's like a PT place, like everything's there.
Who did you end up going by yourself, or did Chuck come with you?
No, I went by myself. I mean, it's like
Which is
invite
kind of
only.
typical. For people who don't know, kind of outside of the cage, you're kind of like a nomad. You just do your own thing, and you do what's sort of best
Yeah,
for you, right? So this is nothing new for people who are like, oh, must have been pretty crazy going by yourself, but you're used to that.
yeah. I mean, even the tough tryouts, you just kind of like pack up and just go, and then you know you let everyone know how it goes or whatever. Like, so yeah, it was weird because like they put us in a car share, so like. And like 40 people went so for this tryout. So like we had all like four people had to split a car, um, and just like you're just hanging out with a bunch of strangers, and like we're all competing, I guess, for a contract. So like nobody was really speaking to each other on the first day. It was like everyone's kind of sizing each other up. It just felt like the tough tryouts. And then like once it was all over, like everyone's so cool and like let's keep in touch. And
Yeah, who did you spark up a friendship with? Anyone you plan to keep in touch with after the tryouts?
I mean, I really liked everybody there. So like we all swapped Instagrams. Like we still like kind of chat and stuff. Yeah, I don't know. Everyone there was really cool. Uh, Bo Beverly's son, who was really cool. I hung out with him a lot. This guy that I ended up wrestling is really, really cool. His name is Gino from Houston. He was a really, really good dude.
Okay, that's awesome, man. And then, do you feel like it helped having gone through the Ultimate Fighter already, just with having to be in that sort of environment where you're having to impress and everything like that? Do you feel like that did help you in this tryout?
Yeah, I mean, for sure. I feel like I said, I already kind of knew what I was getting myself into. Um, I already knew the drills, so it wasn't like some guys were like, "Oh crap, what are we doing next?" And I'm like, "Oh well." I kind of and like I've already just been in that situation, so it's like not a big deal for me. And like some of the other guys too that like have done football tryouts, they were like, oh, it's kind of the same thing. Like everyone's trying to compete for a spot on the team. Um, yeah, I felt very calm, very just like, all right, I'm here, ready to go.
Right. Yeah. No, that makes sense. So, most important question: How did everything go? What was the feedback after the tryouts, or is there a future WWE superstar here that I'm speaking to right now, Eric
I mean,
Spicely?
that I don't know, and I wish I could say, but I can't. But they just like soon as tryouts ended, they were just like, "Thank you for coming. We'll let you know. Everyone did great. Be proud of yourself." And like that was it. And like no feedback. Not they just like they like killed us, and then they just like left. Literally like that we did the last drill. Everyone clapped, and they're like, "You guys should be proud of yourselves. Like that was a hard tryout." Blah 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 blah. Yep, take it easy, and then just like walked away. It was like, okay, cool.
So now that you're not in the UFC, and I'm sure just you're going to take the best fights available, like this one for CES. Is the plan to try and still do pro wrestling like in the future? Like even if it isn't WWE, if Impact came to you or some other promotion was like, "Hey, we want you to wrestle," is that something you'd be open to now?
Yeah, I mean, for sure, I love wrestling. And it's just like fighting. Like if it makes sense, like if I can get paid and like, if it's a good travel opportunity or something like that. Like I don't want to just like sacrifice my body and not really be making money.
Right. It's got to be worth the juice is worth the squeeze, so to speak. Right. So
yeah, and I think I've done enough to earn. I don't know. It's hard to even explain. But like, I remember when I started wrestling, my trainer was like, "Look, pro wrestling can be like really good and it can be really bad." And I remember we wrestled in a sports bar. The ring was like, they cleared some tables and they set up a ring, and like the locker room was like a messed up basement that was like, the floor was like all broken up, and they were doing some remodeling, and it was just like the dirtiest, grossest place. And he's like, wrestling gets way worse than this, So I know even Chuck, like he kind of stopped wrestling as much just because, you can get hurt going with bad wrestlers and stuff. So if I can compete for like a top company and be taken care of, then like no problem.
You're managed by Daniel Rubenstein, Ruby Sports and Entertainment, who also manages Jake Hager, aka Jack Swagger, who's going to be making his Bellator debut. Have you spoken to Jack at all? Just because you guys have the same manager.
I have not. No.
Danny should set that up. Do like a conference call. Be like, because he, if anyone, he'd probably know a lot about the industry.
Yeah, I'm sure he does. I'm like I said, I'm just kind of taking it as it goes. I have a lot of friends that are wrestling at NXT right now.
Who are some? Who are? I was gonna say, who are some of your friends in there?
Matt Riddle just got signed. This guy Drew Gulak, who I've wrestled with, and my trainer Orny Lorcan. So I've spoken with them a lot, and I don't know, should be fine.
Good stuff. Who would you say you've sort of modeled yourself after in terms of your pro wrestling style? Like, is there anyone's like personality that you've taken, or maybe anyone's style that you sort of emulated?
I guess I always kind of really liked Mr. Perfect.
Okay, nice.
Yeah, I don't know. I've always kind of like seen myself as like a Mr. Perfect, like really good at selling, good at technical stuff, not super flashy. I'm not gonna like jump over the ropes and like do dives and stuff, but like I don't know, like someone who comes from like a good athletic amateur background and then transferring that into pro wrestling.
Would you say Mr. Perfect was your favorite wrestler growing up, or was there someone else that you really idolized?
No. Shawn Michaels was like my favorite wrestler growing up, like of all time.
What about him did you like?
I don't know. I don't know if it was because like he wasn't as big as everyone, and he kind of like, but you like kind of believed in him anyway, and like he wouldn't always win, and I just like was such a big fan of the guy.
And how crazy is it that you train in Montreal now, and that's where the Montreal Screwjob was with Bret Hart?
I know. And I loved Bret Hart. Like Bret Hart was one of my absolute favorites. And I always wanted to go to Calgary, like for a UFC card, and like try to find him. Because I don't really want to go to Calgary, for
no,
any other reason.
I agree.
But,
I agree. It's a little cold this time.
So. Yeah, I mean Montreal's pretty cold too.
Oh yeah, that's true. Actually, yeah, I shouldn't be talking. But speaking of which, are you in Montreal right now, or are you back home?
I'm here in Montreal right now.
Nice. Well, that's
good. This is where I live, and going to be training right through the holidays. So
good for you, man. That's awesome. Well, I just got a few more pro wrestling stuff, and then we'll finally get into the CES talk because obviously an important fight here.
I mean, the pro wrestling stuff is way more important. So.
Yes. Well, no, and I just have so many questions because, you and I have done a bunch of interviews, but we haven't really got too much into the wrestling stuff. And one of the things I wanted to ask you was, like, who do you like now in pro wrestling? Like, I'm sure you still keep tabs on it. Is there anyone you're really like, wow, I really like what they're doing right now in pro wrestling?
This guy, Pete Dunne, who's from, like, the NXT UK, and he is, like, he's a brutal guy. I think he does MMA. There's like such a big influence of MMA in WWE right now, and I feel like that's like I know hopefully that really helps my chances. I mean, those guys are easy to teach. Like it's, you just do some tweaks and like, like I think the Shayna Baszler and Oliver Click, they're all like debuting soon or something like that. I know they're all wrestling down like Jessamine Duke and like Marina Schaefer and stuff. So it's like easy that, I don't know. And it's believable. And it's like everyone with how big the UFC is now, I feel like it really helps. But Matt Riddle is probably one of my favorites to watch. Yeah.
Okay. And of course, I'm glad you brought up sort of the MMA and pro wrestling crossover, because the big one right now is obviously this feud with Ronda Rousey and Becky Lynch. And I'm sure you've seen the back and forth on social media. What are your thoughts on Becky Lynch now? Because she's sort of the star of the promotion right now, the star of the WWE. Just your thoughts on her rise this past year.
I think Becky is great. I feel like she kind of reminds me of Conor McGregor a little too much. But I think she's doing phenomenal. And I actually think that she like outshines Ronda Rousey, which is very hard to do. But yeah, I think she's doing a great job. I feel like there hasn't been as much interest, especially in the women's division and pro wrestling, in a long time like that. And now you kind of have two credible people going at it. And like I said, Ronda is kind of like a destroyer and like has that background where she like should come in and destroy everyone. And like everyone's kind of, I feel like Becky's really creating that kind of doubt. Like, oh, I think Becky could maybe take her, and I feel like that's so important. Because you can't just have somebody coming in and crushing people all the time. It's like, it's not interesting. But I'm excited for it.
Who at TriStar do you think would have a good future in pro wrestling? Like you've got Olivier, for example, as that whole Canadian gangster, persona. Is there anyone that you would think would make a good transition?
I actually think Elias did a lot of pro wrestling as well. I'm almost pretty sure he did in Toronto.
He did. You're right. Yeah.
Yeah. I think he showed me some videos or something. So he's got the personality for it. Olivier for sure. This guy, Mandel Nallo, I think would be.
Mandel would just be like a total wild card in there. I'd love it.
Yeah. I don't know. And then the guy who owns the building, Robbie Stein, is like, I think he'd be the best manager of all time. He's just
there you go. You got your stable right there.
I know. Trust me, I know.
That's great. Hey, speaking of stables, any thoughts on trying to get Rashad Evans over to pro wrestling so you guys could be Suga and Spicely?
Ooh, I don't know. I don't know what his interest is. I've only had one conversation with Rashad, and it was at the athlete retreat. And he was like, I think he was really drunk. And then our friend Jake Collier was like wasted. And they had this like insane heart to heart where they were like almost kissing. Like they were so close. And it was so weird. But Jake was just like wasted talking about how he wants to fight at middleweight because he moved up to light heavyweight or whatever. And Rashad just kept telling him he was a light heavyweight. And then to like believe in himself. And like it just got, and I don't think they had ever met before. It was so weird. And they had talked for like 45 minutes. And like Rashad was just like totally involved. And like, I just look at Andrew Sanchez. I'm like, what the hell is going on? And Jake's wife was there and she was all confused and weirded out. They were like, literally like standing nose to nose, like just whispering to each other. I don't know. It was a weird time, but yeah, it'd be sick, man.
Okay, well there you go. There you go.
That's my Rashad Evans story.
That's an interesting story. Glad you brought that up.
The athlete retreat was insane, by the way.
Oh no, I hear great stories. Yeah, I heard it was
peed awesome. His pants. Oh, it was the best. Man.
Who peed their pants?
Jack Marshman.
Oh, did he?
Fucking just peed himself. I think he was wasted. They had an open bar for like 4 days. Yeah, it was brutal. And I feel like everyone was very like the first day they're like, oh, I'm gonna take it easy, be conservative, Second day kind of loosened up, and then third, fourth day people were just like, fuck it, it just got wasted.
Okay. Well, yeah, that's interesting. We should do a whole podcast on the athlete retreat and all the cool stories from that. But at some point in this interview, we have to talk about your fight. Of course, you're back with CES, where you were the middleweight champion at CES 54 on January 19th. You're taking on Stephen Regman. What do you know about your opponent here? He's got a 9-3 record.
Well, first I was never the middleweight champion, but that was
you weren't. Cool. Oh, I always felt like you were for some reason. Yeah.
No, I just, won 8 fights in a row there and never, I don't think I sold enough tickets to become the champ or something. But I always wanted a cool belt. Maybe in pro wrestling we'll get one. But yeah, Stephen is a really good fighter. I mean, I think he's 9-3. He's on like a 6 fight KO streak or something like that. Maybe one decision in there. So I don't know. Like I always want to fight tough guys. I want to get back to the UFC, obviously. And you got to take those kind of fights. And I mean, he's a killer. He's a finisher. He trains with Corey Anderson in Jersey, and I've trained there with Rex Harris and Corey, and like the gym is obviously full of studs. Um, so yeah, I mean, he's going to be a complete fighter. He just knocked out Wilfredo, and Wilfredo is pretty hard to finish. I think he hit him with a flying knee and then came down with the right hand. So, I mean, you got to be ready for everything against him. He's a very dangerous opponent. So I'm excited.
And how is training camp with the fact that you have the holiday season? I'm sure some guys are taking some time off. Does that make it a little bit more difficult with the fact this fight is on the 19th?
No, I mean, TriStar is everybody's in here working all the time. I mean, the people are going to take Christmas Eve, Christmas Day off, and maybe the next day, but it's never good. It's nothing like, Monday it would be packed again, and everyone would be right back to training. So it's never too bad here.
Andrew Sanchez still down there with you?
He is. He is definitely still here. I think he just got offered a fight for March 2nd, which I can't.
You can't say, no worries. We'll keep it top secret. But that's cool, though, because you guys have sort of been, you guys became good friends after the show, and you were both at Syndicate, and now it seems like it's TriStar is his home gym as well.
Yeah, so like I pretty much I went to Vegas. I was like, you got to come to Vegas, and then I came back here, and then I was like, you got to come out here. And also like I went to Vegas for a visit, and like I was training, and he just saw how much better I got. So he was like, dude, I gotta, and Andrew's always the kind of guy that wants to work hard and be the best. And, wherever that is, like he'll go, he'll drop everything and be like, all right, I'm going to go here. And, he fully immersed himself here, and he's like one of the best guys in the gym. So, and he likes to get pushed, and I feel like in Vegas, we weren't really getting a push. We were both, I'd say, the two better guys, especially at grappling. And then I got away from grappling very much just because like people wouldn't train with us if we grappled. So like I had to change my style, and then you go and fight, and then I'm like, oh man, I haven't done any take. Well, it's like I just didn't do it in training, so I'm not doing it now. And I'm like kind of not as sharp. We're here. It's a very grappling centered gym, so I know I'm both thriving very much here.
And who are some of the other guys you've been working with just for this camp? Like, is Rory back in there? Or I guess he's still recovering.
He's still. I did a lot of work with him for his last camp. I think he's just doing strength and conditioning right now, and I haven't seen him, but he always trains. He's always working out. Just the usual guys: Mandel, George, Andrew, Duffy. Yeah, and then just some other guys that are people always pass through, so it's like kind of a tough
revolving door in that way, but in a good way. You get a lot of really good high level guys coming through.
Yeah, you'll just be like, oh, this guy's here right now, cool. But I'd only be here for a week, 10 days or something, or 2 weeks or something like that.
Okay, and how do you see this fight playing out on the 19th?
I don't know. I see it being a really tough fight. I think my striking's gotten a lot better, and I think I showed that in the Darren Stewart fight, even though like I did end up getting caught. So yeah, I think hurting him on the feet and finishing him hopefully on the feet for the first time ever in my career, or being boring and taking him down and grappling him to death.
What are the plans for the holiday season? Christmas coming up next week. Doing anything cool?
I actually probably hang out with my Jewish friend Robbie, the guy who owns the building here, and he doesn't really celebrate Christmas, obviously. So we're just gonna hang out, I think, and just eat dinner or something.
Okay, good stuff.
Nothing too crazy.
And any good spots in Montreal now? I know last time you told me about that coffee shop. Any other spots that you recommend in the city?
Man, so many spots. It's so funny because I like train, and I just like go out and explore the city like every day. And Olivier is he was like at some party, and then someone was like, oh, do you know Eric, whatever? And he was like, yeah, of course I know Eric. Like, how do you know Eric? And he was like, dude, you're all over the place. Like everybody knows you and stuff. There's just a lot of there's so much here. This place Barley, which is like one of my favorite spots, it has like the best avocado toast and just some of the best food. I couldn't even. There's so many places. It's like impossible to name.
Okay. Well, we got to do a whole show. So we got to do a show on the UFC athlete retreat, and then we got to do one on restaurant reviews as well. That'll be the next time. But
yeah, man, I'm in.
Sorry, one last thing before I let you go. I know you had expressed interest in competing for PFL. Is that something you're still interested in next year, or are you just going to wait and see?
Yeah, I mean, I would like to fight anywhere. I tried to get a fight for the Golden Boy show, and it fell through. I wanted to fight Duran Win, but that didn't work out. ACB, I mean, pretty much anywhere I can make a living, I'll fight in. So.
Just remind people where they can find you on social media, and if you have any sponsors or shout outs, the floor is yours, man.
You can find me at Spice Wonder on Instagram and Eric Spicy on Twitter. And I don't have any sponsors, so I don't know. Shout out to TriStar Gym, the best place on earth.